Alex Smith retires after 16 NFL seasons. One of the most compelling stories we've seen ever as it relates to a comeback. The horrific broken leg. The horrific series of infections and surgeries. And the guy first was going to lose his leg potentially. Then we realize he could have lost his life. The images that are out there of what that leg looked like at one point from all of the surgical procedures and the complications and the infections, unbelievable that he was able to come back and play. Crowning achievement, something he should never be forgotten for, and I think something we will all... People have suggested they should name the Comeback Player of the Year award after him, and I could get behind that. That's how impressive it was. But beyond that, the guy's been a damn good quarterback.
Yeah.
And he's been through that revolving door. Offensive coordinators, teams, good enough to get to playoff games. Had some great postseason performances that will be forgotten, unfortunately, especially since he'll primarily be remembered for his comeback from the leg injury.
Yeah.
But he decides to retire, Chris. Sounds like there was no path to the field. And when there's no path to the field, there's a different level of compensation you're going to get. And given that the guy's made nearly $190 million, it's probably not worth it to do all the stuff you need to do to be a backup quarterback and get, what, $3-4 million max.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would think there wasn't a lot of play. You know, everybody would love to have a guy like Alex Smith on their roster. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, like we talked about a lot during the end of the year and everything like that, it just is a little scary. I know you and I were not alone in that thought and hoping that, like, hey, maybe I'd like to just see you quit. I'm nervous watching you play. I think there was that aspect, and I'm sure evaluators, of course, saw that same thing. And that is scary that way. But, I mean, to the point here with Alex Smith, I mean, perseverance is what I'll think about with him always. You know, in two different ways. One, overcoming this injury, like what you said, it's a great story. I could get behind him being, you know, the comeback player of the year name, too, behind that, all of that, too. But then even early in his career, the perseverance there. He was the #1 pick in the draft. It was Strugglesville early on there with the 49ers. They weren't good. He looked like a bust for a first pick. All these issues, he kind of hung in there, continued to work. They get Jim Harbaugh. They finally get the team turned around, and it turned his career around because he continued to hang in there, and I respect that greatly. So I got great respect for the guy, and, you know, congratulations on the retirement, Alex.
I think he had a different offensive coordinator pretty much every year from 2005 until 2011. Jim Harbaugh shows up. They get to the NFC Championship game, but for a couple of muff punts, they could have gone to the Super Bowl that year and faced the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 46. And the game before the NFC Championship, the Saints game, that divisional round contest was awesome.
Yes.
It was one of those few games where as you're watching it, you know this is special, this is memorable. The back and forth, the great run by Alex Smith, the Saints stay in it, the 49ers eventually win the game, the touchdown pass to Vernon Davis, just awesome stuff. Here's some of that game from 10 seasons ago. There he goes around the left edge for the long touchdown run, and I mean the guy had determination, he had grit, and he knew how to get the job done. And then he was done the next year. Colin Kaepernick comes in when he suffers a concussion, and that's it. They move on to Kaepernick. He takes him to the Super Bowl. He gets traded to the Chiefs. Chiefs do well with him, and then they get Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And he has one more year, and he gets traded to Washington, and then the injury happens. So he really did have an underrated career. Postseason, that game that, you know, the postscript on the game against the Colts in 2013 was the Colts came back from a 38-10 deficit in the second half.
Yeah.
He was great in that game.
Yeah.
Alex Smith was great in that loss.
Right. No, I know. I mean, there's some memorable moments as far as, you know, the playoffs. You know, the Saints game, like you just said, is the game that I'll always remember. If you give me one game to think about Alex Smith, that is going to be it. There's no doubt. So many big plays. It's a lot of fun to watch. You're right. As you were watching it, you're going, man, this is special. Can these teams keep answering each other, all that? You know, and to... You know, to his credit, yeah, he was dealt a big blow there. I mean, they were a Super Bowl team, obviously, and they thought, hey, they couldn't get over the hump, so they went with Kaepernick. And then really, it was the same thing that happened with him in Kansas City. And the guy just handled it as professional as you can in both instances. and just continue to move on with life and go other places and be successful and do that. And, the fact that he just always got up off the canvas, keeps fighting no matter what, I really respect that in any player or person, and that's really what Alex Smith stands for.
And it's this strange kind of curse that he had on his career where he was good enough to get you consistently in the conversation.
Yep.
But he was regarded in multiple places as not being good enough to get you over the hump.
That's right.
There are plenty of quarterbacks out there that would love to be that guy.
Yeah.
They're struggling just to be the guy to get you in the conversation. He's getting you well into the conversation. And, it's almost like the mindset that John Elway had when he fired John Fox after getting close to the Super Bowl and getting to the, you can't get me over the hump. You get me close, but you can't get me over the hump.
Right.
And that fact that you're tantalized by being that close, it makes you impatient. And that's what happened in San Francisco. It's what happened. It didn't really happen in San Francisco the way it happened in Kansas City because they drafted Kaepernick before Alex Smith really took off.
Right.
But in Kansas City, that's definitely what happened. They did a hard look in the mirror at the team, and Alex Smith is good enough to keep us in this final 8. We need somebody who's going to consistently keep us in the final 4 and in the final 2, and that's what they did.
Yeah, no. Well, it makes you wonder how different things would have been, right, if there wasn't the drop punts in that NFC Championship game. Would the stigma and perception around him be different if they did get to the Super Bowl that year? And that to where maybe you don't think that way of him going forward, and maybe the team doesn't think about Kaepernick starting that next year when Smith does get hurt and all of those things. I mean, it is definitely one of those what-if moments of his life. But, yeah, ultimately, I mean, I think you kind of hit it. Like, he was really good. He could take you to the playoffs, but he needed a little help getting to the Super Bowl. He wasn't going to be the driving force to get that team there. And I think ultimately that's what made Kansas City draft Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, it's that Pittsburgh playoff game, if I remember correctly, where it was a close football game, but I can still remember watching film of that game going, damn, there was some plays there to be had. They probably should have won this game and all of that. And I would think that's what led Kansas City and Andy Reid to go, wait, we need to find a little bit more of an aggressive, big-arm type quarterback, and that's why they made the moves to trade and get Mahomes in the draft.
That was the game that got moved to primetime because of an ice storm
in
Kansas City. It was a Sunday afternoon game on NBC, and it got slid into the evening. And, that was a gutsy move by Andy Reid.
Wow.
But Alex Smith, an excellent quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks of the past 16 years. And I looked it up yesterday. Other than kickers and punters, because there's a few of them still floating around, 2005 draft with Alex Smith retiring, the 3 non-specialists who are left. Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Richie Incognito.
Wow.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Whoa.
And Frank Gore if Frank Gore signs with another team.
Okay. Well, those are some legends right there. Really. I mean, that really is some big names. And yeah, that's a lot of football. A lot of football. And Richie Incognito, man, I forgot he's that old. Holy cow. That's amazing that he's hanging around still.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.